tonight's news edition. His Majesty the King discusses with U.S. leaders anti-terror efforts and regional and international issues. Iran releases 10 U.S. sailors after a brief detention, and the U.S. Secretary of State thanks Tehran for its cooperation. And in his State of the Union address, the U.S. President urges Congress to authorize use of military force against Daesh. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King and U.S. President Barack Obama met before they left Andrews Air Base outside Washington, D.C. The two leaders agreed to meet next month. On a working visit to Washington, King Abdullah held a series of meetings with heads and members of congressional committees for talks that dealt with scopes of Jordanian-U.S. ties. The situation in the Middle East and other international developments, particularly the war on terrorism and extremism, also figured high on the discussions. The King stressed the importance of intensifying international efforts and addressing challenges to bring about peace and stability in the region. He underlined the need to adopt a holistic approach to defeat terrorism and uproot criminal gangs. On Iraq, King Abdullah stressed the need to support efforts of the Iraqi government to make further progress in fighting the Daesh terror group. He stressed the importance of reaching a comprehensive political solution to the Syrian crisis that would end the suffering of Syrians. His Majesty reviewed the huge economic, social, and security burdens the kingdom is shouldering as a result of hosting 1.4 million Syrian refugees. He expressed the kingdom's appreciation for the assistance provided by the U.S. administration, which stands at $1.2 billion annually to help in the implementation of development plans and improving the infrastructure. Talks also touched on military cooperation between the two countries and means to improve bilateral ties in various domains. The U.S. lawmakers expressed appreciation of Jordan's role in receiving Syrian refugees and providing them with humanitarian relief and assistance.
We look on, certainly on Jordan as a help in the situation. The refugee problem is always tops on our list because Jordan has taken in so many refugees, and it's so important that Jordan does. We help with financing that, but to listen to the issues is very important to us.
Well, I was very pleased that His Majesty spent so much time with us today. Jordan is a close friend of the United States. We share the same objective to root out and destroy ISIL. I thought His Majesty gave us a candid assessment as to the circumstances on the ground in Syria, the impact it's having on Jordan, an update on the refugee issues. It was a very helpful discussion among friends and a very candid discussion.
The lower house is expected to vote on the 2016 state budget draft law after a marathon debate in which lawmakers were critical of the government's economic policy. In morning and evening sessions today, chaired by Speaker Atif Tarawne and attended by Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour, MP after MP took to the floor to blast price and tax hikes and a rising deficit and foreign debt. They blamed the government's failure to address poverty and unemployment and improve services. Others dwelt on raising the salaries of civil service employees and pensioners and spurring the vital tourism, investment, and agricultural sectors. MPs also focused on upgrading education, health, water, and electricity services, as well as infrastructure in their respective constituencies. Border guards received 100 Syrian refugees who crossed into the kingdom in the past 48 hours to flee the war in their country. An army source said troops on the frontier provided the refugees with necessary aid before transferring them to refugee camps. It said Jordan Royal Medical Services medics treated the sick refugees on the spot. Palestinian mourners attended funeral processions across the occupied West Bank for Palestinians killed by Israeli troops in separate incidents. In Bethlehem, several hundred mourners marched in a funeral for a 21-year-old shot and killed yesterday by soldiers during clashes in the town of Beit Jala near Bethlehem. Mourners chanted revenge and fired in the air as they carried the body draped in the Palestinian flag. In the West Bank village of Sa'ir, north of Hebron, hundreds marched in a funeral for a 17-year-old youth that a military spokesman said troops fatally shot after he allegedly tried to stab a soldier. In the nearby village of Shiuch, mourners buried another Palestinian who was killed by the Israelis in Hebron, while in Ramallah, hundreds attended a funeral for Mustafa Khatib, who was shot dead in October by a border policeman. In Jabaliyah refugee camp in Gaza Strip, mourners marched in the funeral of a Palestinian killed by an Israeli airstrike earlier today. The air raid targeted a group of Palestinians who the Israeli military said planned to detonate a bomb at the border. Iran released 10 U.S. sailors after holding them last night, bringing a swift end to an incident that had rattled nerves. Iran's Revolutionary Guard said the sailors had entered Iranian territorial waters by mistake due to a broken navigation system. The incident came days ahead of expected implementation of a landmark nuclear accord between Tehran and world powers. This report has the details.
Iran released 10 U.S. sailors after holding them overnight, saying it had determined the sailors entered Iranian waters by mistake. A senior Iranian Navy official said the release happened after Iran determined the incident in the Persian Gulf wasn't, quote, a hostile crossover meant for espionage. Iran's state news agency released photos of the Americans during their detention aboard their own patrol boats, while government TV announced that the sailors had been released.
We're now learning that Iran has freed the U.S. Navy sailors that were apprehended. Commander of the IRGC's Navy Brigadier General Ali Fadavi earlier stated that the vessels entered Iran's waters because there were some difficulties with their navigation systems.
The Pentagon has confirmed the sailors' release, but hasn't explained how two of their riverine command boats ended up in Iranian waters before being captured. The sailors' brief detention has rattled nerves, coming just days before the landmark nuclear accord between Tehran and world powers is set to be implemented.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry thanked Iran for its cooperation in the release of the sailors and credited diplomacy with resolving the situation.
I also want to thank the Iranian authorities for their cooperation and quick response. These are always situations which, as everybody here knows, have an ability, if not properly guided, to get out of control. And I'm appreciative for the quick and appropriate response of the Iranian authorities. All indications suggest or tell us that our sailors were well taken care of, provided with blankets and food, and assisted with their return to the fleet earlier today. And I think we can all imagine how a similar situation might have played out 3 or 4 years ago.
Jordan condemned a deadly terrorist bombing at a hospital in Pakistan and expressed solidarity with Islamabad in facing terrorism. The kingdom also denounced a terrorist bomb attack in northern Cameroon. State Minister for Media Affairs and Government spokesman Mohammed Momani reiterated Jordan's rejection of all forms of terrorism aimed at destabilizing countries. The suicide bombing in Pakistan took place at a hospital in the western town of Quetta, where at least 15 people were killed, including 12 policemen, and 25 others were wounded. The hospital serves as a polio eradication center. The bomb ripped through a police van that had just arrived at the center to provide an escort for vaccination workers engaged in a drive to immunize children under 5 years old in the western province of Baluchistan. A militant group which has linked with the Pakistani Taliban and has pledged allegiance to Daesh claimed responsibility for the attack. According to the World Health Organization, Pakistan and neighboring Afghanistan are the only two countries in the world where polio remains endemic. Turkey's interior minister said authorities detained 2 suspects in yesterday's suicide bomb blast in Istanbul that left 11 people dead. Among the victims of the terror attack were 10 German tourists. Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu said as he visited the site along with Germany's interior ministry that all of those killed were foreigners. The bomber, a member of Daesh, thought to have come recently from Syria, blew himself up at Sultan Ahmed Square near the Blue Mosque, a major tourist site in one of the world's most visited cities. A spokesman for the German Foreign Ministry said the number of Germans killed had risen to 10 from 9. U.S. President Barack Obama urged Congress to pass authorization to U.S. military forces against Daesh terrorist group. Obama called Daesh killers and fanatics who should be rooted out. In his State of the Union address that tackled a wide range of key domestic and foreign policy issues, Obama also said he would keep working to shut down the Guantanamo detention center. Here's more.
President of the United States.
President Barack Obama arrives to deliver his State of the Union address for the last time. He begins his speech on a people-pleasing note.
And for this final one, I'm going to try to make it a little shorter. I know some of you are anxious to get back to Iowa.
Iowa was the site of the first U.S. party caucuses ahead of the presidential election in November. In a direct hit at Republican frontrunner Donald Trump, Obama said insulting Muslims hurt the United States.
When politicians insult Muslims, whether abroad or our fellow citizens, when a mosque is vandalized or a kid is called names, that doesn't make us safer. That's not telling it like it is. It's just wrong. It diminishes us in the eyes of the world. It makes it harder to achieve our goals. It betrays who we are as a country.
He also accused critics of playing into the hands of Islamic State.
Over-the-top claims that this is World War III just play into their hands. Masses of fighters on the back of pickup trucks, twisted souls plotting in apartments or garages, they pose an enormous danger to civilians. They have to be stopped. But they do not threaten our national existence. That is the story ISIL wants to tell. That's the kind of propaganda they use to recruit.
He went on to say that Islamic State needs to be rooted out and destroyed. Obama's eager for a Democrat to be the next president to preserve his legacy. But anger over his policies and fears about security threats have helped push less traditional candidates to the front in the Republican and Democratic races.
Former tennis Grand Slam champions Venus Williams, Rafael Nadal and Maria Sharapova practiced today at Melbourne Park ahead of the Australian Open. While Williams and Sharapova worked with practice partners, Nadal shared Rotlaver Arena with Czech Thomas Berdych. The Australian Open, the first Grand Slam of the year, begins in Melbourne on Monday. Joined by A-list crowd, David Beckham worked the red carpet last night at an elegant Beverly Hills gala where he was honored by the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF for his strong humanitarian efforts. The former soccer great, who looked in mid-season form, was presented with the Danny Kaye Humanitarian Leadership Award for his extraordinary support of UNICEF's work to Put Children First program. Actresses Selena Gomez, Nicole Kidman and Jennifer Connelly and television personality Heidi Klum were among those joining Beckham at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel for the UNICEF Ball, an event that celebrates the organization's life-saving work for children and paying tribute to those dedicated to those efforts. And finally, it will continue to be chilly tonight in most parts of the kingdom, with frost expected in the desert and hilly areas after midnight. Tomorrow, a slight drop in temperatures expected, accompanied by cloudy conditions in the afternoon, bringing with them a chance for scattered showers in the northern regions. Winds will be westerly moderate to brisk. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a fair day tomorrow with northerly moderate winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. His Majesty the King discusses with U.S. leaders anti-terror efforts and regional and international issues. Iran releases 10 U.S. sailors after a brief detention, and the U.S. Secretary of State thanks Tehran for its cooperation. And in his State of the Union address, the U.S. President urges Congress to authorize use of military force against Daesh. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.